Good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are having a blessed week. Mine's going really good. Hey, I've had a couple people ask me, what's going on in the Middle East right now? What's your take on the Middle East? So I thought I would do a video on that and give you a little bit of history on the Middle East. First of all, the Middle East, Israel and all of her Arab neighbors and her Persian neighbors, Iran, will never know peace. This side of the Lord's return, there will never be peace in Israel. Abraham and Sarah had two boys, and those two boys tie into everything. God had a conversation with Abraham, and he told him that he would have descendants as numerous as the stars in heaven. Genesis 15:5 says, "And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward the heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be." So Abraham believed God, and him and Sarah waited, and they waited, and they waited, and they waited. And finally they got tired of waiting. So Sarah came up with a plan. She would give her husband, Abraham, her handmaid, to have kids through her. Well, listen, that didn't work out very well, and we're going to find out why. Thus Ishmael was born, and from him came the 12 princes that are the fathers of all the Arab people. They fight among themselves constantly. And the only time they stop fighting among themselves is when they come together to fight Israel or America. That's the only reason. When Ishmael was born, this is what God said about Ishmael. Genesis 16:12 says, "And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he will dwell in the presence of his brethren." This is what that means. It means that Israel's going to be right here, surrounded by all this Arab world. And God said this whole Arab world, every one of them, they're going to be wild men. They will always be fighting amongst themselves. They will never quit. Their hand will be against every man and every man against them. This is going to go on forever. Today, the Islamic world is split into two factions. We have the Shia. This is the people of Iran. The Persians of Iran are Shia. They believe that the lineage of Muhammad is the true lineage and the true leaders of Islam. The Sunni, on the other hand, which is basically Saudi Arabia and most of the rest of the Islamic world, they believe in appointed leaders. They don't believe in Muhammad's descendants. They believe in appointed leaders. And they hate each other. The Shia and the Sunni hate each other. The only one they hate more than each other are the Americans and the Israelis. People, you don't need a war in the Middle East to have fighting. You don't need a war. You could go somewhere in the Middle East, whether it be in Iraq or Iran or Syria, anywhere, and you just place a group of American soldiers. Just take a couple thousand American soldiers, put them out there 1,000 miles from nowhere. Not another human being within 1,000 miles. And all these Islamic people will come together to fight the Americans. They'll travel for thousands of miles to get there to die for the prize. So they get their 70 virgins when they get to heaven. That's all they care about. Now listen, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 6 months. And people, it was the most bizarre world I have ever been in. I would rather live in the poverty of the Philippines or the poverty of Mexico than live in Saudi Arabia. When I got there, the first thing we did, the only time I went downtown, and I lived there for 6 months, the only time I went downtown, I went down and found the gold market. And people, you know that, remember, I don't know how many of you remember Mr. T, but back in the days when Mr. T was running around, you know, he had on like, I don't know, 100 big gold necklaces, big gaudy things. You see football players wearing them all the time, just these massive, big, look at me gold necklaces with the emblems. And that's what all this place was. Solid gold, just literally hundreds of thousands of dollars worth. Well, all of a sudden, the prayer horn would go off. And when the prayer horn went off, all the women had to run down to a prayer corner where they had to stand, and all the men went to the mosque. Well, the first time this prayer horn went off, I'm in the middle of this gold market, and all of a sudden, everybody's gone. I mean, you could look over here, you know, 50 feet, and there'd be another American GI, and maybe one over there, but all the Arabs were gone. The women, the men, they were all gone, and we're sitting there left amongst all this gold, all by ourselves. And people, listen, nobody steals anything. Nobody steals anything. Because everything that happens between Sunday morning and Friday night, every single thing that happens is handled on Saturday. You get caught stealing something on Tuesday, your hand gets whacked off on Saturday. You do something worthy of death, like get caught with alcohol, something like that, you will be killed on Saturday. And they have beheadings, hand whacked off in the square every Saturday. And if you're an American and you want to go watch that, they will open up a pathway and bring you right up front where you'll get blood splattered on you. Well, I never went to see that. And right after I went downtown my first time, one of our buses that was there got shot at by snipers, so I never went downtown again. I thought, I'm not dying here. And also, one time I found a phone, and so I called up and called my wife, and I'm on the phone with her. And all of a sudden that prayer horn went off, and all the women that run to these prayer corners, pretty soon I got a tap on my shoulder, and I'm on the phone. I go, yeah, I'll be off in just a minute. I got another tap on my shoulder, and I didn't turn around, and pretty soon they spun me around and put an AR right in my chest. And what happened was that phone and where I was standing, that was a women's corner where all the women run. Therefore, it was illegal for me to be on that corner. And after they explained it to me, I went and found another phone. So anyway, Saudi Arabia is a very, very, very inhospitable place to any foreigners. So right now, this is the case in the Middle East. First of all, they will never know peace because of Ishmael and his descendants. God said they'll be a wild man, they'll always be fighting, and you'll never stop it. But this is what's going on right now. The American dollar is the petrodollar. They only trade oil in our dollars, and that's what keeps our dollars strong because everybody's using them. But that has changed right now. Every other nation is going away from the petrodollar. And Saudi Arabia is now trading with Russia in rubles. They don't use the American dollar anymore, and other countries also. Remember when Biden left Afghanistan? He just up and in one day they left all the equipment, and we just absolutely abandoned every single person that helped us over the last 10 years. And probably 90% of them are dead right now. Because the minute we left, they came down and literally they just murdered everyone that had anything to do with the Americans. So the Saudis looked at that. The Saudis looked at that and they said, wow, boy, you can't trust America to help us or defend us like they said they would. They saw that we just left, and we left all of our allies there to fend for themselves. And probably most of them died. And Saudi Arabia went, hey, this new administration, this Biden administration, we can't trust them. So Saudi Arabia started making oil deals with Russia. And they started making defense pacts with Russia. So now our petrodollar, it's going to go bust here real quick. And another thing, right now, when you watch the news, all the Arabs on all fronts are starting to surround Israel. They're right up on Israel's borders just waiting. And this is what the catalyst is that's going to start all this. Iran, they are so close to having a nuclear weapon. I mean, they've either got it and they're just getting ready to build it, but the technology's there and they're ready for that nuke. And they have said many times, listen, we get a nuke, we're dropping it on Israel. The day we get it, we're sending it right over. We're going to wipe them off the face of the earth. People, Israel is not going to allow that. The moment Israel thinks, and they have the best intelligence in the world, and they know, the moment they think that Iran is putting that bomb together and getting ready, they are going to hit Iran with everything they've got. And that's probably what, the minute they do that, all these armies that are amassed on Israel's borders are going to attack. People, listen. Everything in the Bible, everything in the end times centers around one thing: the nation of Israel and the Middle East. And right now, Israel is so close to war, it could literally happen at any minute. And also, it could get out of hand at any minute. I mean, I'm not that worried about something getting out of hand over there in Ukraine as I am Israel. But right now, the Middle East is a powder keg just waiting to go up, and it will go up. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, there'll never be peace in the Middle East. We're going to see when the Antichrist comes to power, I guess he's going to make a contract with Israel and give them a pseudo peace, a fake peace that'll last for 3.5 years. But there will never be peace in the Middle East because all the Arabs are wild men. They fight amongst themselves. They'll stop fighting amongst themselves to fight against Israel and America. And when that fight's over, they'll go back to fighting amongst themselves again. But people, keep a close eye on the Middle East because it's a powder keg waiting to go off. And when it does go off, it could spread around the world. We live in interesting times. And we're going to see some very, very strange things here before long. So anyway, I just want to give you something to think about. Heaven or hell, you choose. Just remember, once you take your last breath, it's a done deal.